If you're still using sum, average, and if for every spreadsheet, you're analyzing data like it's 2008. Real data analysts use Excel like a lightweight database, cleaning, transforming, and visualizing insights without leaving the grid. So today I'm going to show you 10 functions every data analyst needs to know in 2025, including a few that feel like cheating once you learn them. So by the end of this video, you'll know how to clean messy data instantly, automate your analysis, and build dynamic tables that update themselves. This isn't a list of random formulas, it's the Analyst toolkit that I use every week when I'm building dashboards or crunching financial data. So let's go ahead and dive right in. If you ever pull raw data from a database or a CSV, it's going to be messy, likely duplicates everywhere, and that's where these three functions come in: unique, sort, and filter. They turn Excel into a mini query engine. So let's go ahead and take a look in Excel. All right, so we're in Excel, and so what we have here is a data set with all different product names, its region, and associated revenue. But we want a list of anything that has a revenue greater than $4,990. So we'll go ahead and put that in right here. And let's go ahead and format that real quick by pressing Alt-H-A-N. We'll press English, that makes it a little bit better. We're gonna do a sort, unique, and filter function to give us a sorted and filtered data set. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna press equals, sort, unique, filter, and then we're gonna select our array, and we'll press comma, and we are going to include all of our revenue right here that is equal to or greater than $4,990. We'll go ahead and close all those parentheses and press enter. And now we see we have a nice list of three different products that have a revenue greater than $4,990. And I specifically did $4,990 because if I went any lower, the list becomes pretty long. And I wanted to show specifically anything that was over $4,990. And that gives us a condensed list, but you can put in any amount here. So let's say we want to put 4,750. Obviously we see our list change. We'll do 4,800. And the list changes, and we saw a couple products drop off as well. And boom, in one line, you filtered, deduped, and sorted your data. No manual cleaning. Data can be messy. That is a fact of life. So in this next example, we're gonna look at how to clean data with easy to use functions that will make your life 10 times easier. So instead of fiddling with left, mid, or find, we're gonna use text functions that actually make sense with our data. All right, so once again, we're back in Excel, and we have two different columns. We have one which is a period key, which has a regional location, and then also a year, and also a corresponding quarter. And then we also have the associated revenue. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to clean this up a little bit. All right, so in the text after cell, we're gonna press equals, text after, which is gonna be right here. We'll press tab to lock it in, and then we'll go over and select column B8, and then we'll press comma. In quotations, we're gonna put a underscore, followed by another quotations, and then we can actually just close the cell right there. And this function is going to pull all the text after our underscore. So we should expect it to say 2023 hyphen quarter 2. We'll press enter, and boom, that's exactly what it returns. And that's very handy if you have a common delimiter that you can use to separate out your data. We'll pull it down, and we'll see if we have to Northwest 2023 quarter 2. 2023 quarter 2. So the function is doing its job. Up next, we're going to try the text before. So we're going to press equals, text before, tab, and then we're going to select the same text. And this time we're going to use the delimiter of, let's go ahead and use the underscore again. So in quotations, we'll use the underscore, and then we'll close it with the parentheses and press enter. And boom, we see we get central, which is our location. We'll drop it low. And let's see, we get Northwest, which is perfect. We can also use the text split. So if we do equals text split, we'll find it right here. And this does exactly what it says. It takes a text and then it splits it into two separate cells. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to B8, and then we'll press comma, and then we're gonna find our delimiter. And we're gonna use a dash, put that in quotations. Expand that a little bit, and what we see is we have central 2023 and then quarter 2 because we're splitting at that dash or hyphen, and then we see it split correctly. We can also try it with a different parameter. So let's go back over to B, we'll keep it consistent, B9, we'll press comma, and then in quotations again, we'll go ahead and put that underscore and quotations, and then we see Northwest 2025 Q1. So this is really handy if you have any sort of data that it comes in messy, or if there's issues with it, or you need to analyze it and break it up a little bit. These formulas are the bridge between messy text data and clean analysis. There's no Power Query required, which is awesome. Up next, every analyst needs to find data in data sets, sales, employees data, or product IDs. Forget VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP fixes everything that was wrong with it. You can look left, return multiple columns, and handle missing data gracefully. So let's take a look at our example in Excel. All right, so in Excel, we have an employee ID, employee name, and then the corresponding department. I also created a drop-down list of every single employee ID. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to lookup, we're gonna press equals X lookup, press tab to lock it in. We're gonna turn this A3 into our lookup value. Our lookup array is going to be column A. So we'll go ahead and shift that down. And then our return array is going to be department. We'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll go ahead and press parentheses to lock it in, and we'll press enter. But unfortunately, since we don't have any employee ID in A3, it's not returning anything. But if we change it to employee 4, we get IT. If we change it to employee 8, we get HR. Employee 12, finance. So this is a very quick way to turn Excel into a search engine for you. It's a very simple function. It's not as complicated as index match, and it is a heck of a lot easier to operate than VLOOKUP. You can add columns in here without it breaking, and everything remains the same. If you did that with VLOOKUP, your equation would crash and it would be no good. So XLOOKUP is the way to go. Once you learn XLOOKUP, you'll never touch VLOOKUP again. Think of XLOOKUP as VLOOKUP and index match, but easier and more powerful. Up next, let's look at the family of ifs, which are the backbone of every financial analyst toolkit. You can summarize your entire data set without ever touching a pivot table. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so same thing again. I created a list of all of our different products, and let's go ahead and take a look at average if. So we're gonna go ahead and type in equals average, and then we're gonna select if. We're gonna select our range, which we're gonna look up. So we're gonna select product right here, press comma, control all the way to the top. We're gonna select B2 as that's where our list is. And then we're gonna select our average range, which would again be our revenue. And then we'll go ahead and press parentheses and enter to lock that in. I'll press Alt-H-K, make that look a little bit cleaner. Actually, let's give it a dollar amount. We'll press Alt-H-A-N, and then we'll select English United States currency. And we'll select USD. And then we see that our average of all the cells for product 15 is equal to $10,489. Let's go ahead and try it if we want to count up the entire sum of everything. We'll do equals SUMIFS, select the same range of products, press comma. Our criteria is going to be B2. We'll press comma again, and then we'll go ahead and select our sum range, which would be all of our revenue. We'll close it with parentheses and press enter. Alt-H-A-N, USD, and we see our total sum of all the product 15 is $629,000. But let's go ahead and say that we just want to count the number of product 15s that we have. We'll go ahead and press tab for count if, and the same process. We'll do the same range, comma, and criteria, product 15, and close it. Since we're not counting in revenue or anything like that, we just want the count of the number 15 products. We'll go ahead and press enter, and we'll see that there are 60 instances of the product 15. But what's cool is we can change this around, make it dynamic, and let's say we want to change it to product number 2, we can change that as well. And we see all three of our equations are changing dynamically as we change the lookup parameters. And that's your instant pivot table in a cell. By using the if statements, you can chain more criteria, and these functions scale perfectly for any sort of dashboard summary. SUMIFS is how you turn rows of chaos into a single confident number. Let and LAMBDA are my two new favorite functions in Excel. These are a little bit more advanced, but they're so worth it. Let lets you store variables inside of your formula, which is great for readability and performance. LAMBDA lets you save your own custom function. This is how analysts scale and write logic once and reuse it across 20 different spreadsheets. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so once again, we're in Excel. We have a product, we have previous sales, and we have current sales. Let's go ahead and take a look at the let function. We'll press equals let, and then name one will be cur for current sales. The current value is C9, we'll press comma, and then we have prev for previous sales, and that will be B9, and then we'll press comma, and then we're going to enter in our calculation. We'll take the cur minus the previous divided by the previous. And then let's go ahead and assign a percentage to that to show the change. And now we see that we have 34.2% change in sales from our current sales, or from our previous sales into our current sales. But let's take this a step further. Let's say we have a workbook where we're gonna have to reuse this formula, multiple times over. That's where LAMBDA comes in, and it's a really awesome trick. So let's go ahead into formulas, and we're gonna go to name, and then we're gonna go ahead and press new. And the name of this will be per change to show the percentage change. And then what we're going to do is we're going to press, all right, equals LAMBDA, and then parentheses, and then we're going to have prev, comma, cur, and then we're going to put in another parentheses, and then we're going to have our current minus our previous, close that, divided by previous, and we should be good to go. Oops, forgot a parentheses. All right, so let's go ahead and press equals per change, since that's the name of our function, and we see that right there. And then we'll select the previous, comma, current, and we'll close it, and we see, hey, look at that, we tie out perfectly. So what we did is we created our own custom function in Excel that we can go back to and we can reuse anytime. And to me, that's pretty darn powerful. All right, are you testing a formula but don't have any real data? That's not a problem. Let's go ahead and make our own with sequence and RANDARRAY. All right, in Excel, we're gonna press equals sequence, and then we're gonna select 12 rows for 12 months. And then we want one column, and then we're gonna start with 1. And we'll go ahead and close that. And boom, look at that. Let's see, we have 12 numbers, all representing a month of the year. And then also we're gonna select RANDARRAY to give it a random data set. So we're gonna press equals RANDARRAY, and then we're gonna start with 12 rows. We're gonna start with 1 column. The minimum will be 1. The max will be, let's say 10,000. And each integer could be, let's say true. Tab to lock that in, and we'll close it. And sweet, we have a random data set. We'll press Alt-H-A-N to give it a $sign. And cool, we see that we created our own data set in Excel. These are the Excel equivalent of a test data set generator. Analysts use them to simulate data before the production files arrive. This is kind of like a cool little sandbox environment that you can use in Excel to play around with different functions or different aspects of Excel without messing up any original data. Have you ever imported data and it has like 30 useless columns? Instead of deleting them manually, you can use CHOOSECOLS and take to manipulate and take out what you want specifically from those data sets. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in practice in Excel. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this in Excel. I'm gonna press equals CHOOSECOLUMNS, and you actually see as well we have choose rows, but for this example, we're gonna go ahead and use CHOOSECOLUMNS, and then we're gonna select our array, and we're gonna press comma, and then up in the function bar, you're gonna see me type 1, 3, 5, and 7, and I'm going to go ahead and close that parentheses and press enter. And just like that, data set that we had in columns A, C, E, and G. So super easy to use the choose column function to pull out data that you need. Let's go ahead and try this with an alternative in the take function. I'm going to press equals take, and this is going to return rows and columns for my data set. So I'll go ahead and select the entire thing here. And I want the top, let's say 5 rows from this data set. So I'll go ahead and put in 5 and press enter. And we see that this function brings us back the top 5 rows from our selected data set. These are like the SQL select and top in equivalents in Excel, and they make working with wide data just so much easier. Up next is a lifesaver. Analysts don't just build formulas, they bulletproof them with these formulas. So when you reference multiple sheets or external links, errors happen. These functions protect your dashboards. A pro analyst doesn't show errors, they anticipate them. So let's go ahead and take a look at the IFERRORS function. All right, so in Excel, I have an ID and I have a value associated with it. I'm gonna go ahead and press equals if error. The best way to think about an if error is like it's kind of like the wrapping paper around whatever you're trying to use, and it protects that from being damaged. So if we create a function here, XLOOKUP, our lookup value is in C4. We're going to go ahead and press comma. Our lookup array will go ahead and be in this data set right here. And then we're also going to select our return array, which will be our lookup result. We'll go ahead and press parentheses, and then our value, if there's an error, we're going to go ahead and press not found, close that in parentheses, and press enter. And we see for ID 9, it's $273. But if we go ahead and try a different value here, let's say we select ID 11, we see we get that not found error. And this is really handy if you have like multiple data sets, and if you are missing data, or if there's something wrong or corrupted, this if error will be able to protect you from those types of mistakes. If you've never used aggregate, you're missing out on one of Excel's best kept secrets. It's like a smarter average or sum because it can ignore hidden rows, errors, or even filters. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and give this function a try. We're gonna press equals aggregate and press tab. And then we want, let's say 1 for the average. But what's cool is we have a whole list here of different things that we can select. We can pick sum, we can select minimum, maximum, or count. We can select average or median, large, small. There's a whole bunch of up to 19 different options here that we can choose from. But for our purposes, we're going to select average. And then we have a whole nother menu that we can choose from. We can ignore hidden rows and error values. We can ignore error values, ignore hidden rows. We can ignore nothing if we so chose. Let's go ahead and select number 7, which is going to ignore hidden rows and error values. We'll press comma again, and we'll select our array, which will be revenue. We'll close that with parentheses and press enter. And we see that our average is 8,500. But let's go ahead and filter on, let's just say the North region. And cool, that dynamically changes. We actually increase our average to 8,700, and we're ignoring any sort of errors or any sort of hidden rows as we go along. And you can see in the data set here that there are a couple divide by zeros that are throwing an error. And if this is like any sort of equals average, and we selected the same data set, we get a divide by 0, which doesn't help us, right? So the aggregate is really powerful. This is a formula behind cleaner, more accurate reports, especially when your data is either filtered or if it's messy with errors. All right, lastly, you don't need Power BI or Python to do simple forecasting. Excel's FORECAST.LINEAR does a linear regression right inside of a cell. So if you're building trend lines or budget projections, this function turns you into like a little mini data scientist. Let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so in Excel, let's take it down to month 13. We're gonna press equals forecast.linear. We're gonna press 13 as our X. Known Ys will be our sales. So we'll select all those, press comma, and our known X's will be our month. We'll press comma, we'll press quotation to close it up, and then we'll press equals, and boom, we have a 13th month here. So we can see that the forecast.linear took in the trend based off of these numbers and then came up with its own forecast, which is really awesome. And this is super handy if there's like some sort of like straight line trend that you're trying to capture within Excel. I typically do a lot of like forecasting based on like a trend from month to month. And this function is super handy with trying to find that trend line. So Excel does all the hard work for you where you're not trying to calculate it all of yourself. So this one is really cool and super handy if you're into forecasting or if you work in corporate finance. And so even if one of these were new to you, you're already ahead of most Excel users. The difference between a spreadsheet user and a data analyst isn't the data, it's the formulas that they know how to use. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and drop a comment down below and smash that like button. Have a great day.